Yeah. sounds like a lyric.
I usually do that. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I will go ahead and begin this evening's workshop of the Scarborough Town Council. Today is Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025. And the topic for this evening is Tree City USA. This ties directly into one of our 2025 council goals. This is something that has worked its way through some of our committees, and we have our town planner, Autumn Spear, here to speak to some of the specifics and the details. If no one else has anything to add, I will go ahead and turn it over to Autumn. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Seither. Let me share my screen. I'll go through this presentation. This was included in your packet. But really, I wanted to spend some time just talking a little bit about what Tree City USA is. This did show up in your 2025 council goals. We talked about this. I think what brought it up is that, Maine is the pine tree state. We have trees everywhere. And so there's always concern about trees. Tree City USA is a really positive thing that I think we could do from a town perspective. I did want to tie it into some of our comprehensive plan goals. So the comprehensive plan basically includes 4 visions, and each of those visions have recommended actions. And these are 2 that I just picked out for the purposes of this. There's some strategies about protecting natural resources and preserving important connections. And then the second, future land use patterns will create opportunities for efficient delivery of municipal services and infrastructure. There's also a strategy that this could directly tie into. So Tree City USA, you probably all heard about it. It's an Arbor Day Foundation partnership with USDA. It's basically a program that touts communities' involvement for protecting trees in their public spaces. There's a little less than 4,000 cities and towns across the United States. 48% of the population lives in a Tree City USA, so it's a pretty common thing. We had this where I came from and many of the communities that I've worked at before, and I thought it might be a good way for us to look at doing something about trees in the community. So everyone always wants to know what our neighbors are doing. These are the tree cities in Maine, and then the bolded ones are our neighbors, Portland, Saco, South Portland, and Westbrook. The numbers to the side are how many years they've participated and been recognized. So you can see some long-standing activity. So there's a lot of benefits. Trees are great. Trees do a lot of things. I'm not going to read all these, but there's health benefits, there's economic benefits, there's aesthetic benefits. They can help with traffic calming. There's a lot of grant opportunities out there for things like this. So there are a lot of reasons to join. I will say that some of the things that Tree City USA requires to apply are not necessarily things that you may want to do without even pursuing Tree City USA. There's some just good practice type things. So to be an official Tree City USA, there's 4 standards. One of them is a tree board or a department. You have to have a public tree care ordinance. You have to spend $2 per capita, and then you have to have an Arbor Day observation. And so Arbor Day here in Maine is typically in May. But the tree board requirements, and I'll be first to say no more committees, or I'm always talking about committees and boards, but this one does require this. They would usually just meet up to maybe 4 times a year. That's what's required.
Do they have to be their own board, or can the scope be part of like conservation commission?
No, ideally they would be their own board. It's not to say that you couldn't have a group that's already meeting reconvene as a tree board if you could talk that group into doing that. But Conservation Commission was not interested in being the tree board. We'll say that. So that's the first requirement. Usually you are also going to have to designate somebody who's responsible for making the decisions, like a town arborist, public works, community services. I've had communications with both the departments in town. So it would be a partnership between those 2 groups to facilitate that. It would not be a planning facilitation of that meeting. The public tree, oh, yes.
Is this the format that we're doing?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's no problem. Go right
Uh,
ahead.
Does Scarborough currently have any Arbor Day celebration or?
We do not. We started Sustainable Scarborough Day a few years ago, and that's in October. And so we could actually, we can have an Arbor Day celebration whenever we want. So we could even try to couple it with that to start, but we don't have anything currently.
And is there currently a arborist?
Yes.
Okay.
We do have someone on staff that holds that certification.
Thanks.
So the public tree care ordinance, this is really the meat of the requirement. And what's really important, and the reason public is underlined, is this does not apply to individual property owners or private property. This ordinance is written, it only applies, if you all went this way, it would apply to public right of ways and our parks and open spaces, our town-owned properties. So that's what the ordinance is for. It gives you, it lays out what types of trees and plants are appropriate in certain rights of ways, how you plant them, how, the materials that you use. It also gives the arborist authority over who can prune them and that sort of thing. So it's really important to note this is only talking about our town-owned rights of way and properties. Budget considerations, as I mentioned, it's $2 per capita, so that's a little less than $50,000 per year. These are some pictures of some recent work that we did down at Dunston, removing some dead trees. This is a typical type of work that we're already, in speaking with Public Works Director, we're probably already capturing almost this amount of money. We just need to separate the line items. So budgetarily, probably wouldn't take a lot to show that we're spending this amount of money. We could also apply for some grants. They're not, canopy grants usually go up to $20,000. They haven't reopened this year, but there's some opportunities to get some additional funding as well.
I would say just historically, most of our expenditures for the removal or aspect, we're not really in the business of planting. And I think that would be certainly something we want to get in as well. But the removal is really for maintenance.
Right.
And we're blessed not to have a lot of power outages. A lot of it has to do with us keeping keeping our utility lines clear.
Do we have an idea how much we spend on maintenance?
Doug Howard said he has a line item of about 35,000 right now, typically. So somewhere in this realm.
So we do have capacity. Historically, we had a bigger capacity in terms of doing that work.
Your mic's not on,
We
sorry.
find ourselves contracting out more and more for the more complicated. This picture is actually our crews doing this work. We're able to shut that lane down. I should correct the record. I think we call them elm trees. They are in fact ash trees. So
Autumn, is the money, is the grant money tied to the designation of being a tree city or?
No, but being a designated tree city can help you get grant money and
Okay.
vice versa.
Yep.
And you can also, for tree city purposes, you can get the $50,000 really in pretty loose ways. You can have your line item in your budget. You can have volunteer time. You can attribute a dollar amount to that. So, staff time, all of those. So it's a pretty easy thing to get to, overall. But these images, so having that tree care ordinance in place, when something like this happens and we need to take those diseased trees down, we would have a list of what an appropriate replacement would be. And then we would have designations, so a designated money set aside to replace the trees. So not just to take them down. We do require street trees from all of our private development when they go in. And so it would make sense that we would do the same thing, especially as we start to get our infrastructure and our trees start to age out. So this situation is going to become more and more common. And there's certain trees that shouldn't be planted in roadways. So having that in place is just good practice.
This might be hard to answer. Do you know if we currently have all the equipment needed to roll this out, meaning like the landscaping equipment
Sure.
and everything?
That's a great question. I think that we do. And like Tom mentioned, this would also allow us to contract for what we couldn't do.
Okay, right.
Yeah, we have a bucket truck. At this point, we do have at least one arborist on staff. We used to have 4 or 5. And we're working toward training up others with that certification. Having one has been a limit to us. That person needs to be either supervising or physically doing the work. And he's also a jack of all trades. He does all of our traffic signals, so he's in hot demand. So it'd be great, and we will have additional trained staff. But to answer your question, we do have a bucket truck and certainly all the appropriate gear for tree pruning and removal.
So the fourth requirement is an Arbor Day observation. And as I mentioned, in Maine, Arbor Week is in May. It's really something fun. This is the part that community services would probably really take on and do this program. Put on, you can do some tree planting, activities for kids, that sorts of thing. And so, I mean, we could even start it with combining it with the festival we just had.
Oh, Summerfest.
Summerfest, thank you. You could even do an Arbor Day thing for that. You could do Arbor Day with Sustainable Scarborough Day. So it could be small or big, pretty small lift, I think.
I think there'll probably be some school opportunities too, to overlap
Yep.
with some curriculum opportunities.
Definitely. So when you do those 4 things, you join, you submit annual applications by the end of the year, you report your activities that occurred, and then the applications are reviewed and you receive notification. Pretty straightforward stuff. You do it every year, and that's Tree City, USA, if you would like the designation. Current status of these efforts, this came up as a goal. We did a draft through the Conservation Commission review for the tree care ordinance. And so we had discussions earlier this year, February, April, and May. And so I do have a draft tree care ordinance that is ready to go to ordinance committee pending this conversation and making sure we're still on the right track. And then we've looped in, of course, community services and public works. And my timing would be to take the ordinance to the October ordinance committee if we can.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna give you just a couple of highlights for what the ordinance talks about. And so the purpose, again, this is really the purpose that the Conservation Commission really spent some time with this. It's basically the aesthetics, the ecosystem, the healthy environmental impacts, and then to make sure that we are doing the same thing on a regular basis. You take 4 trees down at Dunston, you replace them, but you take 4 trees down at Oak Hill and you don't, it's inconsistent. So this would give us an opportunity to provide that.
Autumn, is part of this establishing an inventory of what exists on public land in parks or even along public rights of way?
It certainly could be. It's not necessary, it's not included, but it definitely would be a good idea to have that. So we know what especially as things age out. Because trees here don't seem to last. Some species seem to have a 30-year time frame. I mean, we can look at the trees that we've just removed at Town Hall. 30 years seems to be the age of a lot of these trees in the public realm.
Would this include also planting new trees in places that they should be but aren't?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And so if we made decisions that we wanted to do a streetscape, maybe the next 5 years, we're going to spend $25,000 of the $50,000 budget on new trees. And we're going to hope to get volunteers to help, do different things in the parks for planting. So yeah.
Does this have an impact on the marsh or the coastal aspects? Scarborough's image is the marsh and the coastal communities. So I'm wondering, does this play into it at all?
I think trees in general, for their carbon intake and their environmental regulation, yes. Short answer is yes. I don't know if us planting 20 trees a year is going to have a huge impact, but it's certainly not going to hurt the marsh. Does that help?
Yeah. Okay. I had one other question. I noticed that our neighboring communities have had it for many decades.
Mm-hmm.
How have they experienced this? Have you had a chance to get a sense?
Not just other
Just
than,
not there yet to find out how they've.
Basically, they all have a public tree care ordinance and it seems to be pretty straightforward. But I haven't had any.
It's just remarkable that for 50 years, it's been all around us, but not us. And we have a very much a community that's coastal and marsh and so tree thing would make sense.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, stole your thought.
So again, the ordinance administration would be the town arborist. That's a position in the Public Works Department. And then Public Works Department would have the right to do the maintenance and the pruning and those sorts of things. And then we would be able to set up, like I mentioned, if you had volunteers that wanted to do some work. I know where previous city that I worked at, we would have for Arbor Day, there might be 1,000 trees planted by volunteers and kids, and they're saplings, you know, they come in the little bags. But those types of things where the public works or community services departments would help dig the holes and then the volunteers would drop them in and then you planted 1,000 trees in a week. So those sorts of things can happen.
Yeah, they have just one common sense thing is
Is your mic on?
basically, yeah,
Perfect, thank you.
thanks. I remembered. You know, trees are a lot of the time a problem with the power lines.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, we have power outages because of trees and stuff, so it doesn't make sense to plant a tree right underneath power lines.
Sure.
So, you know, maybe we should have that part of it that, you know, don't plant a tree right underneath the power lines.
And that's part of the ordinance addresses how we can do maintenance under the power lines, but it would also, to your point, make sure we're not planting a huge, you know, if we're gonna plant something on a streetscape that we want something, make sure it's a short ornamental tree, so it'd be a small tree, the appropriate kind of planting. So this would include that too. Let's see, and so the advisory board, it's a board, they're basically, they would be created and nominated by you all. There'd be 5 members plus 2 alternates. The way it's drafted now, there's a council liaison and a staff liaison. The 4 meetings per year would be required to meet the requirements of Tree City USA. And they are doing fun stuff. They're not telling people what to do with their property or even really telling us what to do. They're giving advice for Arbor Day activities and educational activities, and then reviewing the arborist activities and maybe, you know, if there's a tree planting plan, prioritizing that sort of thing. So that would be the advisory board. So again, potential next steps. If you all are good with it, I would put this on the ordinance committee agenda. It might get back to you November, December. I would recommend we start tracking expenditures starting in January, and then this would be a specific line item budget in the 2027 budget. And then maybe early as next spring, establish the board and staff liaison, and then maybe May or maybe fall, do a small Arbor Day observation, and then we could apply next year. I mean, that's a fast track, so could also be slow tracked. But with that, that concludes my presentation. I did put in some additional resources, some links for the public out there, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, John.
So Counselor Shoup sent us an email asking about why limiting it to just flip spaces and not do anything further. So I'm just curious, like, what would that next step look like if we were to try and do this not just in public spaces, but also in our zoning or private spaces?
That would look like a really concerted effort to meet with the public and homeowners, and because it wouldn't be property, it wouldn't be commercial property owners. We already sort of do that with them. So it would really be talking about residential properties. And those would be some difficult conversations, I think. You know, Maine is a forestry state. There are some forestry rights here that even when we talked about that in conservation a little bit, some of the members thought, oh, that would be tough. South Portland has a tree ordinance. You have to get a permit if you're going to take down trees on your property. And I know that can be really troubling for people. It would look like a long process of meetings, John, and a lot of public outreach and a lot of understanding of what the ordinance would look like and then what violations would look like, because that's your ordinance is almost not as good as your enforcement, right? And so I don't have anybody in my staff that I would designate as the tree enforcer right now.
What,
So
what do we require today for new commercial developments in terms of if they cut down trees, what do they need to replant or anything
we,
like that?
we don't have any replanting requirements. Our landscape ordinance has a requirement for a certain number of trees and landscaping, including shrubs for the site. Typically, it's about 15% of the site, depending on the zoning. We do have streetscape trees, we have foundation plantings, but now you cannot clear cut your land. You can cut the trees for your limits of disturbance. So if you're going to build on half an acre, you wouldn't clear the whole acre. You know, there's a line. But you don't have to necessarily replace one for one on those trees. You're just meeting our landscape requirements.
We also have vegetative buffers. Very often those are done with natural standard trees.
So from your perspective, do you think what we have in place today is good enough, or do you think more needs to happen in there? And again, I'm just reacting to a lot of the emails we received from people who bring up concerns when they see what they consider clear cutting, which I'm assuming is not really clear cutting. It's,
Sure.
but the perception of all these.
Thing for development, right? So from a commercial perspective, we redid our landscape standards in 2024, and I am pleased with them. There is a development right now, I will not name it, but if you find it, I will tell you if you're correct. It was under our old landscape ordinance and it makes me very unhappy. For commercial development. So I think our landscape standards are good for commercial. I think we're in good shape. There is an inclusion of if you're going to preserve trees, how to do it. And so that's good, but we do not require tree preservation. So some communities, if you have a significant heritage tree or a stand of significant trees, require tree preservation. We have it set up so at some point, if we wanted to do that, we could, but we don't at this time. But I think all in all, our landscape ordinance is good for that respect.
Okay.
And we don't have any requirements for
That
residents.
preservation be like specific to a species and age and.
Right, if it's a certain diameter at breast height, that, you know, if it's this size and it's
Yeah.
that sort of thing, we really encourage you to preserve it, but we don't require it.
Does the planning board have the discretion to push on that, or?
They can push on it, but they can't require it. They can, now what we do have the ability to do now with updated landscape ordinance, if you're going to say you're going to preserve a tree, you have to do it correctly. So there are some measures you have to take in the site plan ordinance.
I would say, what we have is fine, no more ordinances. Again, you say a big tree, you encourage them to keep them, but a lot of times the big tree is the problem.
Sure.
I mean, I have one right next to my house. It's huge. It's two side by side, which often split off. If it splits off, it's gonna go through my house, you know, and I want the option to cut it down if I want to cut it down. And I think the homeowner should have that option. I don't think the people should be saying, no, you can't cut that. I
Yeah,
think as far as homeowners, I think we should just leave it, let people do whatever they want with their home and their property. You know, government doesn't need to be dictating. I can see maybe a big development, you know, and again, like the Eight Corners project, I mean, the only way to do it is to cut them all down. I mean, you got a major project like that, you can't work around trees. So, and they do plant them back. They put little trees back and they'll grow into bigger trees. So, yeah, I think it's
I
fine.
agree with you, Scott. Like
Yeah.
I was curious, and I think you answered my questions to be comfortable just doing the public piece. I don't think we need to go down the path trying to do more on the private side or.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's a little challenging just because our two members of our ordinance committee are not able to participate in this part of the conversation. And I appreciate Counselor Shoup emailing us ahead of time to kind of get some public consensus from the council on the direction that we would like to see this take at ordinance. And what I'm hearing and the way that I also feel is that I think that taking this to ordinance just as the town-owned property piece
Right.
is the angle that we're kind of comfortable with at this time.
Walk before we run.
Walk before we run. Okay,
agree.
and so are there other questions for Autumn about the ordinance or about the timeline? Yeah, Larry.
I asked 3 questions about this now. I just kind of want to be clear that you don't anticipate that we need to actually hire any staff by putting this in place.
I do not anticipate that, no.
Counselor Shoup, welcome.
Sorry.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think that we were kind of to the point of being ready to wrap up, but if you would like to participate or jump in, I welcome your comments.
I missed the whole presentation. I did.
It's great.
I did review it. And so I think I sent an email to my counselors earlier. And so, I mean, the reality is I'm not quite sure what the ordinance is that's going to be coming before ordinance and what the ordinance was that we were looking for it before for tree protection. But I just kind of wanted to plant the seed with you and you guys that, you know, our neighbors do have a tree protection ordinance that goes across the whole town. And so I would love to go all the way with this and not just be on town property when we implement some sort of tree care ordinance. I would really like some long, hard thought about maybe going town-wide. I don't know if that would require maybe redrafting it, maybe not being so restrictive. I really don't know. That's Autumn's wheelhouse. But I just think really, and I think Autumn can say that a lot of the feedback we've gotten the last couple of years has been about clear cutting. And to me, clear cutting is really something that's happening not a lot with, it's not our residents, you know, it's just one here, there, and there. And so I do feel like there would be a lot of support within the town and the residents to put parameters around clear cutting and things like that at a minimum. Because I think, I don't know, we are, you know, the pine tree state, but yet you come to Scarborough and there are lots that are just completely cleared. And so when I see our neighbors implementing ordinances to stop this and, you know, there was something in the news because the Jetport violated that ordinance and they're suing them and all this stuff and they're implementing it and they're doing it. I think it is possible. And so, you know, whenever residents are coming to me with a real problem that I feel like maybe there's actually a solution, I felt like that was a solution. So I think we kind of worked that into the Tree City. So that was all. I mean, obviously I support Tree City. So thank you.
Sure. So Karen, just to kind of catch you up to speed on the council deliberations, I think that there is general consensus from the part of the council to send this to ordinance as drafted, just pertaining to town-owned property. That's certainly a conversation that can be furthered within the ordinance committee. And then specifically, if you all work with staff on, you know, maybe something that is separate and specific to clear cutting, that I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Autumn, kind of falls outside the purview of this Tree City designation, which I want to keep focused on making sure that we drive toward that very specific goal and meet those requirements. And then, you know, just like everything else, there are going to be offshoots and side conversations that occur that may or may not, you know, influence other ordinance decisions.
When we do the inventory, kind of similar to how we're keeping track of conservation.
Mhm.
It would be nice to be able to keep track of like how many new trees we've
Certainly.
planted or things like that, just to, you know what's happening and just be able to communicate to the public, like how we are, you know, planting these trees and keeping them healthy and taking care of them.
It sounds to me like you would like another art installation
I
for
would
town
like
hall,
art
and that
installation.
we should get our talented staff member thinking about
Make
what we would
a
like to
tree,
see.
they can make a
Tree
tree
tractor.
and then we can have like a leaf that goes in.
Tom might make me just give you a spreadsheet for that one. But I will say, Karen, just to recap, so the ordinance that I didn't talk to them specifically about the ordinance, but the ordinance is still the ordinance that was drafted out of conservation in May. So it's just the public rights of way and public properties, like town-owned properties. So I just gave them a little highlights on that. But it wouldn't apply to single-family residential properties at all. This wouldn't even apply to commercial properties. And then Counselor Anderson had asked some questions about our site plan ordinance that applies to commercial, but we don't have anything that applies to residential. So just to be clear, this does not include anything on that.
I just had a question, Autumn, is there a requirement for filing a forestry plan with the state in
Yes,
certain
if
cases?
you're going to have a professional forester come, yep. And we saw that on the Holmes
I
Road
was gonna say, they have a
case.
sign
Yes,
that
yes, and
designates.
Usually we can go on and find, so in some instances, when I see things like that, I've been able to reach out or go on their website and see if I can find the permit, and we get some notification, it's hit or miss. But yes, they can do that.
So there's a plan and a permit issued at the state level, but they don't, at this point, need any local
No.
review or approval.
No, not necessarily.
Can I ask a question just based on what you just said about commercial and not residential? So like if there's a new residential development that goes in that has multiple homes in it, there is no requirement that.
Well, that's different.
Okay.
So there's a lot of, so it's nuanced. So commercial development and multifamily development goes through our site plan ordinance. And that is chapter 405B, and there's the landscape ordinance that I talked about earlier with foundation, all that applies. So then if you have to go through subdivision ordinance for single family homes like Layton Farms
Yeah.
or New Elmwood, there is a requirement to have 2 street trees per lot. And those are in our public rights of way. And those are the trees that are planted by the developers, but perhaps in 10 years, they get taken out or they die. They're in our public right of way.
Is that new based on the new ordinance that we did in 2024 or because like
No,
specific?
no, that's just subdivision.
In Layton's farm, I noticed when they did phase 5, they did put trees
Mhm.
around the sidewalks, but they didn't do it for any of the other phases. So is that something that should have been in place?
Possible.
So can I ask them to plant some trees in our yard?
Typically, that's.
You can
done-
ask them whatever you want. Hesitate for a second, I'll say it.
Yeah, we'll check into that, but that's done as part of our, to make sure they're complying with the subdivision approval.
Yeah.
And then before street acceptance, those, we're actually physically counting trees and making sure they're.
So it's possible that maybe the planning board said you don't have to do those because you're gonna do this open space. There's some nuances around that. So that's subdivision, but then there's another situation, and that's probably most of your homes that are just homes that you've lived in for 15 years. The subdivision has been a while, and you're on your own private lot. We don't have anything that says you, Scott, can't take down that big tree in your yard. We don't have anything that prevents you from doing that. And to that matter, even in a newer subdivision, we don't have anything that says, you can't take this tree down in your Layton Farm lot.
Mhm.
It's just the right of way.
It's worth just mentioning, commercial properties, we actually, those landscape standards actually extend beyond the right of way. You said we have some requirements around.
Yeah, those are the ones that you're gonna see. Evergreen Credit Union on Denton Road, great example of landscape standards. They have the foundation plantings, they have street trees, they have trees in the parking lot islands. That's a great new example that you can see.
Great. Other questions or comments for Autumn or the council? Yeah, Scott.
Just one thing for John and his house. I mean, you go out in the woods, I mean, and you can find a little sapling oak tree and the acorn will still be in the ground and it's really easy. You take the thing, you dig it up and you go and you put it in the ground. It's really easy.
I'm afraid that that I'm gonna hit a power line. So I need somebody to do the dig safe first.
When you're doing.
This is where I need this property.
Tiny tree.
Yeah.
You only have to get out 6
Well,
inches.
I did plant my own trees and they did not do very well. So I do not have a green thumb.
Water, water, water.
John, think trowel, not shovel.
Yeah.
I will say, as a transplant, one of the reasons that I wanted to move here were the trees. It's lovely and the greenness, and we live close to the woods, so I have those saplings everywhere. My husband complains about the acorns, and I'm like, no, leave them alone.
With that, I will go ahead and close this evening's workshop. Thank you very much, Autumn, for your presentation. This will be moving as planned as far as I'm concerned, and the council is in agreement to the ordinance committee in October. With that, I will go ahead and close the workshop and we will reconvene for our business meeting at 7 p.m.
You.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Scarborough Town Council. Today is Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025. And at this time, I will ask everyone to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liam, could you call the roll, please?
Sure. Counselor Doherty,
Here.
Counselor Kane,
Here.
Counselor Shoup,
Here.
Counselor Fellows,
Here.
Counselor Donovan,
Here.
Counselor Anderson,
Here.
Chair Scyther.
Here. Thank you. Item number 4 on our agenda is general public comment. If there is anyone wishing to make general public comment on anything that is not on our agenda this evening, I invite you to please take the podium at this time, or if you are online, you may raise your hand and I can call on you that way. Seeing no general public comment, I will close public comment. Item 5 is the minutes from our August 20th, 2025 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Show that as unanimous. Thank you. Item number 6 is adjustments to the agenda. I do not have any adjustments this evening. Item 7 is items to be signed treasurer's warrants. The town clerk is not present this evening, and so I will make sure that I take care of the treasurer's warrants either after the meeting or I will come tomorrow. Item 8 is the town manager report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try to be brief this evening. As I've done for the last 6 months or so, Eastern Trail, just a quick check-in. Project is certainly underway. I do want to flag for your benefit. The trail goes through the CMP corridor, and that area is essentially a privately owned industrial park. And one of the things we've discovered is that there's a drainage pipe that crosses where our trail is going, in particular where one of the large bridges, the abutments to the bridge is going. So we really want to get a sense of the condition of that pipe before we build on top of it. So we've done that, and we'll be engaging with that private owner to see if we can partner on replacing at least that section of pipe. If not, it's in its entirety. Budget is an ongoing concern of mine. Just a project of this magnitude, we're already running into unknowns, which is very typical. We do have a contingency, but I'm just fearful the big and expensive work is yet to come. So we're monitoring very closely. With respect to Scarborough Hill Road closure, I've again reported on this for the last 3 or 4 months. The culverts are in a failed condition. As I've previously advised, we're not able to do any work whatsoever until November. And that's really due to the fish and other species in that area. In the meantime, we're evaluating the options, which include a conventional replacement, although it won't be with traditional culverts. It will likely be engineered box culverts to allow much more passage of water. And we're also including in our evaluation possibly not restoring those and closing that section of road. Obviously, that has huge implications to the traveling public and convenience for those who live in the immediate area. So we'll certainly need to reach out and do some public engagement on that. We have applied for a grant, and I think understanding what those funding sources might be, I think are going to be a critical part of that conversation as well. I should also mention DOT is doing massive work in town this year, all over the place. Pleasant Hill Road, this is the overpass over the Pan Am Railway, will be replaced. I believe they'll be looking at a complete road closure on Pleasant Hill Road, September 19th through the 22nd. And they may need to do further closures, but that's a definite. We'll be coordinating with them further on some more particular guidance in that regard. In addition, they're doing work on Spurwink River. This is Spurwink Road. The bridge, I believe they'll be able to maintain alternating one-way traffic. So you can pass, but it will be a bit of a delay. And that work should have commenced already this week and extend all the way through October. And lastly, Mitchell Hill Road at this point is closed for the next 45 days or so. They're replacing the bridge at the Dunston River. It's just unfortunate all these things are happening at the same time, and all corners of town seem to be affected. But Just wanted to make you aware of that. Also, with respect to Sawyer Street, this is the Spurwink Marsh area. This council has convened over the last couple of years, a couple of meetings with your colleagues in Cape Elizabeth. And the notion we're still exploring is to actually abandon that section of road and restore that, what is now road, back to Spurwink Marsh. We heard, I think, at your last meeting, some residents upstream are interested to know more about marsh migration and what it may or may not need for their properties, and we're looking further into that. And at this point, the next step would be to answer those questions and for the formal discontinuance process to come before this body this fall. Clearly, we'd like to coordinate that effort with Cape Elizabeth, and staff is in touch on those details. With respect to the vulnerability assessment, this council heard a presentation and accepted that assessment last month. We do have 2 neighborhood meetings, as you may recall, that plan certainly focused on public infrastructure, but it also paid particular attention to the beach communities of Pine Point and Higgins Beach. So we do have a follow-up meeting at Higgins Beach on September 4th, later this week, 6 p.m. at the clubhouse. And then next week, September 9th in Pine Point, again, 6 p.m. at the firehouse. That is to further engage those communities who, based on the modeling, it's clear they'll be affected, not just with storm surge, but normal high tides in the future will be have noticeable effect on those neighborhoods. While I'm thinking of Pine Point, you may recall we were planning on doing significant repaving in the entirety of Pine Point and Pillsbury Shores. There was an unfortunate incident involving a fire last month. As part of that experience, we realized water flows are less than desirable. In fact, in an unsafe condition. Thankfully, our partners at Maine Water were very quick to respond. They have already, this is a project on their capital plan some years out. They've kind of reworked their plan to make this a priority. A representative was at a neighborhood meeting I was part of last week, and they'll be bidding that project this fall with work to commence as soon as weather permits in the spring. What that means for us is obviously we'll hold back all of our paving until they've completed their work. And so effectively it'll be about a year from now where I think we'll avoid the summer season. There'll be enough headache with the water main replacement through the spring. We'll give people the summer and then come back at it this time next year. Perhaps counselors who were in attendance will speak more to this, but we did host a forum, GPCOG coordinated it, but we hosted it here at the Public Safety Building. This is to learn more about the potential impacts of LD 1829. This is a state law that was passed last session. It does not take effect for us until next July. So we have some time. So this was an opportunity for us to, 1, get educated, and 2, start some conversation with our municipal colleagues in terms of what that might mean for them, whether there is the need and desire for any coordinated response as a region. And some of that is still very much in flux, but I'm pleased that we started quickly to start to understand the potential implications for us. 2 final things, just housekeeping. Tax bills we do expect will go out by the end of this week. Worst case, Monday next week. The holiday this week caused some challenges for our printer. So I apologize for that slight delay. I'm sure no one in the audience is terribly disappointed they have not received their tax bill yet, but we try to stay predictable and prompt. And lastly, just to mention, I don't have the specific results, but nomination papers for all local elected office that closed at 5 p.m. today. The clerk is not able to be here this evening, so I'll stop short of announcing. It is all subject to her verification that proper signatures were gathered, and I'll certainly report that out as soon as tomorrow. With that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Tom. Does anyone have questions for Tom? Yeah, John.
With the delay in the paving, I know at the community meeting for East Grand Ave, there was a lot of conversation about how do we apply maybe some of the principles for the East Grand Ave project to Jones Creek.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a plan to further engage that neighborhood on how we kind of marry the two and make sure that if there's anything that we want to do there that we can do before the paving or as the paving goes in?
Yes, in fact, what we promised at the meeting you were at was to apply the same design principles to Jones Creek as we intend to for East Grand. Essentially, that would be a 5-foot offset for sidewalks, and 20-foot for any side street. This is to pay, painted, parking spaces on street. So I did produce a map. I have it in my office. I asked them to convene or offer up a handful of folks to work with us. We now have the luxury of time to work that through, so I think we're well on our way.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, Karen.
Thank you. So I actually missed the Conservation Commission meeting, so I'm going to ask you about the grant that you're applying to for the Scotto Hill Road for closure, because apparently it came before them and they were looking for a letter of support. So I'm just a little bit more curious about if you get that grant or what the process is.
Yeah, this grant, it's through the, forgive me, I have the acronym, I don't know what it stands for. It's the NMRPC. I believe this is grant money that comes from wetland mitigation fees that are paid into the state. We became aware of it when we requested a meeting and met with the Army Corps on the site when the incident first happened. And they said, you know, this would be a really good candidate. They followed up and we followed up with them as well. And they encouraged us to actually apply, so we've applied. And this would be only for the restoration, for the option to discontinue that portion of road and not put something back in place, restore it back to marsh. So I think we'd like to know the answer to that, whether there's any funding, and that's part of the conversation. I guess the other point I should be clear about, this is a project that was not anticipated, not therefore not budgeted for, and the costs that we're aware of, we're not going to be able to do that in the near term. So I think the reality is this will likely stay closed. This is my impression through the winter until we can secure additional financing, whether it's through grant funds or through the budget cycle. So we're gonna have to live with that condition for a bit longer.
Any other questions for Tom? Larry?
Hi, I just wanted to comment on the meeting that discussed LD 1829. That was really informative. I want to thank Councilor Anderson who put that together, and it was a whole group of regional towns and cities that came here to Scarborough and saw that presentation. And I was new to a lot of that, but the encouraging thing is that amongst all those cities, there was general consensus that this is a ordinance statute, and it's going to really affect our town and others with how we can control growth and manage, particularly around density. And so I think it's a great start to having a regional response to a state statute, and I really appreciate John's effort to put that together.
Thanks, Larry. Any other questions or comments for Tom? Seeing none, I will move on to our agenda. Item 9 is standing and special committee reports and liaison reports. John, can I
Sure.
call on you first? Thank
Yep.
you.
So Transportation Committee met last week and we reviewed the vulnerability assessment since a lot of it was around roadways. So I think we're going to definitely have a challenge in front of us in terms of how we prioritize roads as it relates to the vulnerability assessment, which are very different from the roads that are in our townwide transportation assessment. So I think the Transportation Committee is really up for the task, though, of trying to make sure that we have a CIP that tries to help prioritize, you know, priority roads that consider both resiliency and, you know, traffic congestion and movement and safety. So looking forward to that work continuing into next year and hopefully having another conversation with the council as that CIP comes together to really make sure that the priorities are the right priorities as we go forward for roadway improvements. Finance meets on September 11th at 5 o'clock. We have a pretty meaty agenda with very important topics. So one is the stormwater fee. So this is a council goal that we set to explore a stormwater fee. So staff has been working to come to the committee with some ideas and recommendations that we'll discuss. We are also looking at, with the school on the ballot, similar to like what we did last time, exploring adding a new school impact fee. So just last time when we did this, I think somewhere around the range of 20 to 25% of the cost of the project could be eligible for impact fees. And so impact fees would be where new development would essentially have to pay those costs. So I'm sure we'll kind of get insight into what this looks like. But again, just because the school's on the ballot, I would say anybody who's interested in the school, just tune into the impact fee discussion, because even though the ballot will have language for what we will bond for, some of that money will likely come through impact fees. We're also, based on Councilor Kane's suggestion, revisiting our senior property tax assistance program to see if we may want to consider increasing that. So that'll be a discussion that the committee will be having. And then staff has been working in parallel to this TIF effort on a separate effort around doing better modeling for the shelter benefit. So they'll be sharing the work that they've been working on between Karen and Nick Cloutier, our assessor, and SEDCO, to help us better understand what the TIF shelter benefit is and make sure we have a model that the town feels comfortable that if and when TIFs come forward or when they're up for deliberation, that we have better modeling to know what the true benefit may be to the town. The only other thing I want to give an update on, we had a couple of residents a few months ago now who came forward who were concerned about ICE presence in Scarborough and an incident that happened on a Saturday in the summertime. I've been in contact with the ICE regional field office. They've confirmed, as has our federal delegation, that ICE was not involved in that particular incident. It was a CBP incident. There was no involvement of the Scarborough facility for that incident. I did request if we could try and get a tour of the facility. They denied that request, and I asked for reconsideration. I'm still waiting for feedback. Shelley Pingree office has also reached out asking for cooperation and more transparency into what's happening in that facility because residents have asked. So that's something that may be happening. And we'll continue to see what information we can get.
Thank you, John. And just before I move on, I appreciate you championing those questions and really kind of being a dog with a bone and not letting people brush you off on those. And then I had asked John to give that update so that the public would know. He's been keeping the council aware of what he's been up to, but I wanted to make sure that the public knew that John has also been really persistent with that. So thank you. Bill,
No committee reports, and thank you for summer.
you're very welcome. Corey.
Thank you. Not a lot to report. Planning Board and Long Range Planning have not met since our last meeting. Long Range Planning meets a week from Friday on the 12th. They'll be continuing to dig into their review of the Town and Village Center zoning. Rules and Policy Committee convenes this coming Monday afternoon at 5:30 on the 8th. And then I was glad I was able to participate in the LD 1829 forum last week. And I also thank John for convening that. And it really did bring a really interesting cross-section of folks from a variety of communities from the greater Portland area, ranging from Scarborough and Cape, South Portland to Gorham and Gray and Durham. And there were definitely some differences in terms of the dynamics in those different towns. But as Larry said, there really was a unified feeling that this legislation could be problematic. And I was also really struck that by the fact that other communities are really grappling with some of the same pressures that we are in terms of growth and housing, again, in different ways. Obviously, every community is unique, but felt it was a really productive session, and I was encouraged to see that there might be some opportunity, at least around the margins, to push back a little bit on some of the substance, and we'll see where that goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen.
Thank you. So I think we touched on the Conservation Commission was working on a letter in support of that grant, which is great because whenever you can get money on the table, that's always helpful for the town. The Parks and Conservation Land Board has been busy yet again. So they will have another application coming forward from the Scarborough Land Trust and also from Maine Farmland Trust, which is great. So we'll be looking forward to seeing those coming through. I wouldn't say I'm a liaison, but I would say the Pine Point Association has been continuously updating me, and they did invite me to their meeting. So I just wanted to acknowledge that I appreciated that invitation. I got the opportunity to, and Tom was there as he referenced. I think it was just, I appreciate the invitation to really see, Scarborough has so many different little neighborhoods and they have their own little subset of issues going on down there. I would say a lot of the conversation was based around that fire that recently happened and the fact that Maine Water was unable, that their water ran out. That was a big topic for them. And, I think that's a big issue going on. And so again, I just appreciate the invitation and being able to kind of see what's going on within the neighborhoods throughout Scarborough. Next week, we have the ordinance committee meeting, and on our agenda is the short-term rental ordinance, or I guess we're calling it a registry now. And then we're also going to be revisiting the performance standard for landscape architects, but we're going to be talking about doing performance standards in the light industrial zone. That was, I think, something we identified at the last meeting that we wanted to add, and we're going to do that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Larry?
First, I have the School Communications Committee that I'm a liaison to. That group is meeting weekly. They've developed a great comprehensive plan to get information out to the community about the school project. And they're doing live events and online communications virtually every week to touch and reach different people. The school project website has been updated for all the new, there's a new FAQ section there that is based specifically on the approved plan that we all agreed to. So they've taken out some of the original information about decision-making on which way to go, but they've added a lot there. I really encourage you to go see that. I've asked council leadership to consider having a public workshop through the council here on the school project. And it looks like we may be able to do something with that in conjunction with one of the council meetings in October. Community Services Advisory Board has not met, and the next meeting is September 11th. So we'll have something for you after that. And then communications, the big thing we worked on there was the town survey. We completed that last week, and I sent it out to the counselors for feedback. And I did receive comments from a few people, Councilor Shoup and Fellows, who are on the ordinance committee, let me know that back in the early summer, when the animal control ordinance was set aside, they committed to the community to include a question on that survey to try to be more informed about how the community is viewing the animal control ordinance and the impacts of that. I'm very open to that, and I'm really looking forward to getting some detailed feedback, but we need to be pretty quick. We're trying to have this to the survey consulting company within a week so that it can be sent out to the community the week of September 22nd. So I'm encouraging you all to give me some ideas on how you'd like to see a question structured that speaks to the ordinance. Not so much to the ordinance, but to what the community is feeling on that subject. My personal suggestion is that it's a broad question that gauges how animals, and for the most part, we're talking about dogs, have impacted people in town, so that we have an idea. We've never really tried to get that information before, as far as who is actually having negative impacts with animals in town. I hear a lot of anecdotal positive impacts, but I don't think we need to know that. And so what I was envisioning with that was a broad question kind of about around, have you or your family been directly affected by misbehavior of dogs or their owners? And then the choices would be something along the lines of yes, but only as a nuisance, yes, with a resulting injury or property damage, or no. And what I would hope to get informed from that, those answers, is how serious or how impactful is any perceived and actual problems that the town faces to do with misbehavior or the infractions of the current ordinance, to then decide how do we need to, if at all, change the current ordinance. But if I can ask you guys if you have other ideas on that and the specifics around kind of structuring a question, if you could get those back to us by Monday, I guess I would say, and then we can, during the week, next week, we'll try to still be able to hit that deadline to get it out to the survey company.
Great. So I will, we can do this one of two ways. If there are people that are prepared to speak to this tonight, we can do that during council comment. Or we can take care of it and you can email suggestions to Larry. It's a little bit out of our normal procedure because the comms committee already met and this deadline is going to happen before the comms committee meets again. And just so for the public benefit and, us making sure that every counselor felt like they had equal access to share their input. I'm happy to discuss that publicly this evening if counselors feel like that's something that they want to weigh in on. So then we can do that during council comment, if that makes sense. Okay.
That's great.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Any other update? Okay, thank you. Scott? Okay, perfect. From me, I also want to thank John for facilitating and organizing with GP Cog to host the meeting that we all took part in last Monday. One of the challenges that we have and that GP Cog really, kind of grapples with is that they represent a lot of different communities. And Corey spoke to this briefly, that, we all have our own individual challenges and no two communities, no matter how close we are geographically or size-wise, have exactly the same things going on. And so sometimes I think GP Cog struggles a little bit to really provide a strong voice on something because there is no one size fits all answer. But I was really encouraged by the conversation that we had with our neighboring communities. And I do think that GP Cog really successfully was able to pull at the common ground. And so hopefully we'll be able to make some headway. If nothing else, I think we have made it clear that we would like to have better communication with our state legislature, and that was universally felt. And so I know that that is something that we need to carry on with, and I hope that that's something that the future council really thinks about as we move forward. Today I did a very brief interview with WGME on our transportation plan. So I just wanted to let you all know that I provided comment on the transportation plan. I did speak with Councillor Kane on the possibility of having, using our platform as the council to have some kind of discussion on the school update or workshop, some kind of something, informative presentation even as the school vote draws closer. And so I will work with council leadership to discuss maybe what that could look like in the coming weeks. And then lastly, council leadership this week talked about our upcoming workshop schedule for the fall as it relates to our council goals, and specifically our council goals around growth and workforce housing or development and things like that. And these are all really meaty conversations that we have kind of taken our first bite at multiple times. But what we really need is to focus on the goals that we laid out as a council, and then figure out how we can have robust public conversations so that we get an idea of where the consensus of the council is now. And so what we've decided to do is split it into 2 sessions. Our first session is going to occur in October, and we will kind of have a housing overview. Town staff has agreed to prepare some slides on our current housing stock, on everything from our land use and how our rate of growth ordinance works, and do some reporting out. We've heard a bunch of public comment recently, feeling like that there hasn't been some reporting out of some of these details. And so town staff is going to work on getting some of those details prepared. And then the second half of the workshop and conversation will occur in November, where we really kind of talk about where we're going to go from there. And so we've tried to lay out a plan that will incorporate this council. As Tom mentioned, papers were due for new council seats today. I am not seeking reelection, and so I did not expect to be emotional about that. So there will be a new person joining the council, and being really cognizant of that. And so making sure that this timeline fits with the needs and the wants of our community, but also being aware that you're going to have potentially some new people sitting here. And so I will provide plenty of more detail on those workshops as they get closer, but I did want the community to be aware that that's what we have coming up over the next 8 weeks or so. I think that is all from me. There's nothing else. I will get to the good stuff and the reason why you are all here this evening. For those of you who are not regular attendees, this portion of the council meeting, I will take public comment. We're onto old business. Order number 25-070 is second reading regarding the establishment of a Dunston Omnibus Municipal Tax Increment Finance District. At this time, I will open this up to public comment. If there are individuals wishing to make public comment, please join us at the podium. State your name and address for the public record. Please respect the 3-minute time constraint. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Do my best. Thank you, April. Whoops.
Already breaking things.
I know. Liam Summers, Holmes Road. In case there was any doubt, the last town council meeting should have provided more than ample evidence that the residents of Scarborough are saying clearly and emphatically that development in this town must be slowed and that the use of TIFs must be stopped. Not paused for further consideration, not tabled until the town council can put it back on the docket when there's less attention to it, but stopped, period. No more TIFs. Our tax dollars need to be spent on town needs, not developer wants. The town governance has made a practice of giving out lucrative incentive deals to developers for years, always with robust promises of some major benefit to the town as a whole, if we just funnel tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into these developers' pockets while subsidizing their project. None of these promises ever materialize. No recreation center, no new school funding, no town center, no tax relief, nothing of value to the everyday residents of the town, just more perks to the residents of these developments and more tax money in the pockets of these developers. The developers of the Downs alone will take in more than $100 million in taxpayer-funded TIF money for a project that has provided exactly zero benefit to this town. And I'm aware of my focus on the Downs, always, as it is the largest and most divisive development project Scarborough has ever undertaken, with developers who have been anything but good partners to this town. But I could highlight a dozen other massive development projects around town that are also overbuilt and overfunded by our tax dollars. I welcome anyone to take a 3-minute drive down the road and visit the Nonesuch River apartment complex at 8 Corners. It's a sprawling 120-unit eyesore that will render the roads around it unusable. Musty Road is already completely unsafe to use. And it sits just 100 yards from our primary school. Yet this town and this council decided to give that project the green light without a moment's hesitation. And the average rental price in there, $2,500 to $3,000 a month. So I guess that's considered affordable in Scarborough. The town's support for developers has been unwavering. As a nightmare of constant construction, traffic jams, degraded infrastructure, and overburdened town services and schools become the norm. It's time for that to change. It's time for this council to start prioritizing the needs of the town. It's time to stop giving away hundreds of millions of dollars to fund these projects. Future projects should be able to proceed on their own merits without taxpayer subsidy, or they should not be built. The town has a $140 million school refresh that's coming due. Needs significant infrastructure around Route 1 and Payne Road to manage this increased traffic. And numerous town services will need to be upgraded due to the massive influx of residents. All of this is being paid for by the taxpayers, not the developers. So I close by simply repeating, there is no gray area, no inconclusive data, and no ambiguity. If the council takes any action other than to unanimously vote a definitive and resounding no on this TIF, then they do so with the full acknowledgement that they are showing that supporting developers is truly their primary focus, and the needs of the town and the will of the taxpayers who are footing the tax burden are inconsequential to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, you get the one.
Denise Hamilton, 2 Rod Road. This is probably going to be the shortest public comment I've ever made. And I've been to many meetings. At the public hearing on the Dunston TIFF on August 20th, more than 150 people attended, about 100 residents wrote to you, and about 20 people spoke directly to the council. The message has been consistent and clear. The taxpayers of Scarborough have spoken, and now it's up to you to show you heard us and that is to respect the will of the community and vote no on the Dunston TIF. We're not asking for you to table it. That only drags this out and ignores what residents have already said. Vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Hey, guys, you can't, the reason, listen, before I continue, please, the reason I can't allow clapping is the same reason I wouldn't allow you to boo. We are welcoming all kinds of public comment in favor, in support, opposed, and so let's just try and be respectful. Thank you. No, please don't boo.
I'm not gonna get applauded.
That's the standard we set when I let it go. Welcome.
Richard Hayes, Martin Avenue. I'm here also to ask that you folks vote no to the Dunston TIF. I believe it would be nothing other than a disaster. I would like to remind all counselors that in the 2 town surveys, growth in this town was the #1 issue. Mr. Kane, our newest elected counselor, has stated more than once that while he was campaigning, growth in this town was the #1 issue he heard from residents. I hope you are all listening. I'm proud to tell you that I'm a member working with a fantastic group of people on the Not So Fast Scarborough movement. There's been a lot of effort go into it. I think you've seen some signs, and I hope you've heard us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make public comment this evening? I have someone online, so I'll go online and then I'll go to the podium. AMK, we should be good to go.
Thank you for allowing me to comment. I had to mute something here. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Councilors Fellow and Anderson for responding to my email that I sent to the council. And while my first point is to asking you to vote no on the TIF for Dunston, I have a couple of other points that, while not directly related to that, relate to the whole growth and development points in general. I saw that there was some kind of discussion about designating Scarborough as a tree city. And I just want to comment how that seems to be in direct conflict to the council's ongoing urge to develop the town of Scarborough. So yeah, and I would love to see it be a tree city, but it doesn't seem to be heading that way. And then also in terms of vulnerability studies that Tom Hall was discussing earlier, I want to make sure that we're not just discussing the vulnerability of our shore and our coastline. The streams and rivers and creeks in the town of Scarborough are being choked off because of overdevelopment, and now the choking off of the growth in the streams that where there's no place else for the water to go, and it's seeping into our yards and it's raising our water tables because there's so much choking off. So I want to make sure that the vulnerability studies include people that are away from the coastline. Again, this is all a lot to do with overdevelopment. Also, in regards to the moratorium that was brought up in several meetings, while I understand that there are issues around personal property and what people would like to do, I think most people would agree that we're talking about big commercial development. And I wonder if there's a way to offer incentives to people who do have private property that want to sell off or commercially development to otherwise put that in conservation and allow for some conservation easements that would help the owners of those properties to have some kind of benefit from them without turning them over to developers. In regards to LD 1829, which seems to be, I don't know a lot about it, and my apologies for not doing a lot more research before this. If that is a law or a statute that is compelling development based on the state determinations, then I think that that should be revisited and rewritten if it's interfering with our ability to govern our local town and to govern on behalf of our residents. And then just a comment about something that Councilor Anderson mentioned earlier. Can we just get rid of ICE in our town? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to make public comment? Come on up to the podium.
Hello. Okay, I'm Clara Humble, that's in my address.
You do.
I live down on High Point Road, down by the marsh, and I just want to say that the one thing I love about Scarborough is the trees and just how naturally beautiful it is. Just like all of it, like I love driving through it and all that stuff, but in recent years, it's just gone so, I just see building after building after building. And also, like, it's $2,000 to like afford that. Like, no one is affording that right out of college. Like, you're just paying for like just the same people just to move in. So I feel like we have to vote no on this to preserve Scarborough's natural beauty in this town for future generations, because I feel like next 10 years, these like little kindergartners growing up aren't going to be able to see these beautiful trees on the side of the road. And that makes me really sad. Just like knowing that my generation is the last generation that gets to experience this, and that should never happen. We should preserve our beautiful Scarborough marsh and trees for all the generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you can clap. You clap for it. Worth the applause.
I'm Neil Gregoire, 81 King Street. I appreciate what Claire had to say. I mean, at the rate we're going, in 10 years, this town's gonna be built out. There's not gonna be a square inch of undeveloped land left. I wanna give the council, I guess, the benefit of the doubt here. And I wanna just ask a question of the town manager, of the council. Is there any question in any of your minds the message has been delivered to you by the residents of the town of Scarborough? If there is, swallow your pride, raise your hand, and let's clarify what those questions are. I mean, in a minute, we're going to hear John pontificate on how great TIFs are, how they benefit the town, and how we should all be piling onto them as fast as we can. That's not our experience at all. So I just, lacking any sign that the council doesn't understand what they're being told, I have to assume that they do, and that their intent is to comply with the wishes of the town. And that's not a table. That's not a let's put it away till a year down the road when we can try to sneak it back in. It's, as Liam said, no more TIFs, no more CEAs. We're tired of having it put to us by the developers in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make public comment? Welcome,
Jim
Jay.
Pritchard, Maple Ave. I've been back and forth on this issue, whether to approve, disapprove, or whatever. I've decided to recommend the council vote no on the TIFs. But in conjunction with that, also add a 6-month moratorium on any developments. Mainly because going through 18 months of school committee work to come up with ideas how to address the student enrollment. We continue year 8, 9, 10 could be a problem for us. We've made recommendations on it. Plus the traffic is horrendous in this town. You can't move freely. We have kids crossing the roads with bicycles and whatever, and drivers aren't yielding to them. We have people riding in the bicycle lanes. People are weaving back and forth, almost getting hit. So I would recommend to the council a no vote on TIFs along with a 6-month moratorium on development, both commercial and residential. Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel the same way everyone has felt. Alexander Christie, 21 Chemic Road, Scarborough.
Thank you.
It brought up last week that, or last meeting, that everybody was talking about Scarborough being reported somewhere as the fastest growing town in Maine or something like that, or one of the fastest growing towns in Maine. I have never in my life wanted to live in the fastest growing town anywhere. I want to live in the most aesthetically and thoughtfully planned town anywhere. And I think most people, when you get home from work, would agree with that. It's not about speed, it's about planning, aesthetics, and doing it the right way.
Thank you.
Good evening. Jane Davis, Mitchell Hill Road. I just want to say, really glad for the work they're doing on the bridge in Mitchell Hill Road. It's the absolute least amount of traffic in 15 years I've lived on Mitchell Hill Road that I've ever seen. No motorcycles, no cars zipping up and weaving in and out. So I hope you guys close Mitchell Hill Road like all the time. So I want to say that first of all. Second of all, you know, I wasn't here for the other public comment meeting, but as a 35-year this month taxpayer, property owner, and voter in Scarborough, 20 years on Nonsuch Cove Road off Black Point Road, and now 15 years on the west side over by the Gorham line on Mitchell Hill Road. I've seen this town just explode, and it is absolutely, to echo what many others have said, it saddens me, it's frightening what it's doing to the environment, what it's doing to our kids, our children. They're not able to ride their bicycles. We're not able to have walks. The character of the town has completely changed. And even though I wasn't here for the last one, I just wanted to make my voice heard to please ask you to vote no and not table it, but to vote no. We have to stop this madness. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make public comment this evening? Going once? Yeah, you got it.
My name's Tim Diamede. I live on Ryfield Drive. All right, so first off, I urge the council to vote against the TIF at this time, and my concerns are threefold. And this is just iterating everybody else really, but congestion. First and foremost, Dunston Corner is already one of the most difficult areas to drive through. Adding more development without clear funded solutions will only make daily life more frustrating and less safe for families. School overload. So, my boy Charlie just had his second day of kindergarten yesterday. Oh, I love him so much. But you know, we are on the wait list for the after school program, so we're 11th in line. So there's no chance of that happening. But our schools are near capacity. New housing and businesses will bring more families. Without a plan to match that growth, class sizes and resources will suffer. So we're outpacing infrastructure for sure. And near and dear to my heart, environmental impact. You know, Phillips Brook and in the Scarborough Marsh that we all love and treasure, I'm sure. We need to protect them more, and more pavement and runoff and risk to long-term damage to these fragile ecosystems is no good. What I want to see instead is a plan that prioritizes green spaces, walkability, and places where children and families can gather. I don't know, where do the children play? You know, Cat Stevens, where do they play? Where are we gathering? Where are the places that are fostering community? I'm just not seeing it go up. I've been here for 8 years now, and I live in a great spot, but we might be tempted to move. You might be pushing some good families out of here. Scarborough should not become a corridor of storage units and strip malls that do not foster community. We should be building a town where children have safe places to play, where neighborhoods can connect, and where growth reflects our values. And until we have a vision that balances development with community and environmental stewardship, I believe approving this TIF would move Scarborough in the wrong direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make public comment? Seeing no one else in the room, anyone else online? I will go ahead and close public comment. Thank you very much, everyone. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Council discussion. Is there anyone who would like to get us started? John?
So first, I want to thank everybody who showed up at the last meeting, this meeting, and sent emails. I tried to respond to everyone that we got, probably missed a couple. I do plan to vote no tonight. And I think a lot of it is because of the public sentiment and the feedback that we've received. You know, despite my pontificating about what the benefits of a TIF could be, I don't think those pale in comparison to making sure that we take a breath, listen to the community, and really make sure that we do the work that the chair outlined in terms of having real discussions about where we are and where we need to go, and what are some different strategies we may want to deploy, especially with LD 1829 looming, that may, you know, again, really take it out of local control to be able to manage the pace of growth, which again is very clear as a concern for many. And I think the councils that I've sat on have all done what we can to help manage growth. There's certainly more we can do, and I'm interested to see as those conversations happen, what we can actually do and what the appetite is of the council to maybe take some tougher choices than we've taken in the past. For some of the residents that, you know, are asking things like no TIFs, no CEAs ever, I just want to set the expectation that we cannot bind future councils. So the only thing that each council can commit to is what that council can commit to. So this council can commit to not doing TIFs until November. The next council, when we do goal setting, could say, we're not going to accept any TIFs or CEAs. There was actually 1 year, I think, on council, I think maybe it was Councilor Shoups, Either, and I, when I think we said no contract zones, or there was something that we said deliberately to say, we're not going to allow anything like that, which is another way to skirt our zoning to put in different developments. So again, there are things that the council can commit to do that can help. But my ask for the audience today, I have two asks that I hope some of you will take me up on. Number one is thank you for your engagement, and I hope it continues. So if anybody's inspired to get more involved in their local government, we will have a bunch of committees that open up, and a lot of the issues and concerns that people are expressing, we have citizen committees that are working hard to figure out how do we preserve our trees, deal with the congestion and traffic, really address the needs that improve the quality of life, the rec advisory board to find places for gathering. We've implemented term limits now on our committee, so we have a lot of really great people terming out, and we will have a lot of openings that we need really great people to come in, participate, and really be a part of the dialogue on a more active basis to help shape the future of Scarborough. So that's one ask. I hope some of you will look into that, apply, and hopefully get involved. The other ask is, as we've talked a lot about tonight, is LD 1829. We are doing what we can to engage our legislatures, and as your elected officials, I think that has some influence where we can coordinate with other communities, but really the power is in the people in the room and the people reaching out, as I'm sure you'll see tonight as we vote. And so I would just encourage you guys to email your legislatures and express concern about LD 1829. And just make sure that they know that in Scarborough, that particularly the provision that basically takes away our ability to manage growth in our designated growth areas, which Dunston is one of them, essentially developers will be able to purchase that land. And I think the one thing we all know is Scarborough is an excellent location. Despite some of the stories that were shared tonight, and I know some of you aren't pleased with the direction it's going, relative to a lot of other communities, Scarborough is still probably one of the best places to live in the state. And that's part of the challenge, is that people know that the secret's out of the bag, people want to build here. And so property owners want to sell their property, and they want to give it to people. And so this new legislation essentially really prohibits us locally being able to do stricter management. That doesn't mean we can't do things like moratoria and things like that if the council ever decides to do that because of real, true, strong infrastructure challenges. But I would just ask that you please reach out to your legislatures and share your concerns about that specific legislation.
Thank you, John. Other council comment? Corey?
Thank you. I also appreciate the public comment and participation, and like John, I hope that folks will continue. And I guess, well, to kill the suspense, I plan to vote no on this. And I'll explain my rationale shortly, but just to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Councilor Anderson said, I really do hope that this level of passion and engagement continues beyond this, not only on growth, but on schools and transportation and everything that we're trying to grapple with in this town. And all of them are kind of symptoms, if you will, of, as John said, the fact that Scarborough is such a great place to live. Like I joked a few meetings ago, it's people don't want to live here anymore because it's too crowded, but somehow people keep coming, So, but on that theme of participation, I'll just very briefly say that, listening to some of the public comment, not all of it, but some of it, and reading some of the emails, seems to be this perception or belief that there's this kind of binary dynamic where there's the council and there's the taxpayers and the residents. We're all residents, we're all taxpayers, we sit in the same traffic, our kids went to the same schools. And we are represented, we're elected representatives, and we have to strike a lot of balances. And while there are 100 people in this room, we're a town of over 24,000. So we do need to be mindful of everyone in the town. And there's sometimes this rhetoric that makes it sound as if we have an agenda, and we've heard phrasing like the council is pushing development. We don't drive development. I mean, you can argue about the merits of TIFs and whether those incentivize certain types of development, but we're not the ones who are sitting there behind the scenes pulling strings and hatching development plans. We enforce ordinances, we modify ordinances, but it's not as if we're sitting up here trying to force an agenda down anyone's throats. And I'll also add that, as the town manager mentioned during his report, the nomination period just closed for council and other seats. People are not exactly banging down the door to sit up here. So I say that not to hope that anybody feels sorry for me, but I just want to share a little bit of that perspective that, we do our best and we try to balance things. And I'll have more to say about growth and housing when we have some of those discussions going forward, and I hope that those are fruitful. In terms of the TIF, I am voting no. I did vote in favor at first reading, and I did vote in favor of the credit enhancement agreement that had been proposed for the Marshview project. I felt that that was a worthy cause and a worthy use with public benefit. In the absence of that, and given everything else that we're facing, I think it does make sense to take a breath, and I hope that we can have some good discussions going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Corey. Other council discussion? Karen, thank you.
Thank you. First, I'm sorry that I missed the public hearing. I was sick. It was really hard to not be here because I do really care about what residents have to say. I do read all your emails, but you probably noticed I'm not great at responding to them, but they are read. When you just Google TIF, it's a tool used for development. And so I have not been supportive of a TIF from the beginning because I do not feel like we need to be spurring more development in Scarborough right now. I do live on Pine Point Road, so I drive through Dunston multiple times a day. And, I don't know if you guys get the newsletter, but I did write a Council Corner article, which I think speaks directly to why I'm not supporting the TIF. I'm very much in support of the environment. And so, when we talk about Dunston being a designated growth zone, I don't think it should be a designated growth zone. And one of the things that council is in control of is zoning. And so I hear people frustrated about the fact that we have like the 8 corners. I hate to say this, I was on the planning board when that came through. Do you know why I'm on town council? Because there was nothing the planning board could do because of the zoning. What council needs to do, from what I hear from the feedback, is maybe we need to revisit some of our zoning. I do not think Dunston should be a growth zone. I think it's just a mess. I think we have what we have there, and I don't really feel like that's the direction we want to go, that the residents want to go. I'm kind of with you guys. I'm coming up on my 20-year anniversary next month of living in Scarborough, and I'm sort of sad the direction we've come in, and even sitting on council, I don't even know what to do, because you have to get 6 other people to agree with you that we need to change a growth zone. We need to do a moratorium, that we don't want growth. And so I think while we all hear residents saying we don't want growth, there's many different ways to respond to that idea of like, we want to stop growth. I would like to be very aggressive, and hopefully we can all come to some sort of agreement, but I will not be supporting TIFs anytime moving forward, because no matter how you spin it, I think they do invite development, and I think we really need to take a big breath here in Scarborough. Our neighbors somehow are able to manage growth. I think there are towns around us that are just as desirable, but they're not facing these problems. So maybe we should look at what they're doing right and what maybe we're doing wrong. So obviously I will be voting no tonight.
Thank you, Karen. Other counselor comment? Larry?
I've voted no on the first reading for this, partly based on without the Marshview project, I didn't think there was any urgency to define the district. There's also a piece of that as when you define and pass a TIF district, it has a 30-year life. And since there was no development immediately being proposed, we are kind of starting the clock on that 30-year time frame. So I didn't think there was any reason to do that. And I'll be voting no again tonight. I would just say I really appreciate what the other counselors said about staying involved. Voting down this TIF does not affect or conclude any effort towards controlling growth. It doesn't change the zoning. It doesn't change the density, the setbacks. So anything that is currently allowed to be built on those properties is still allowed to be built there. And if it meets all those zoning requirements, that never comes before the council. They're meeting all the requirements. They go through planning, and that can be approved just based on the facts of the development. So I encourage you to really stay involved. I think it's a great start, and I think the council is well aware of the objection to the growth. And it's a great catalyst to try to start a more robust conversation around the levers that we can pull and the zoning we can change, and put our efforts into that. So again, I appreciate all the input, but really encourage you to stay involved.
Thank you, Larry. Scott?
Yeah, I guess basically we need to come up with a solution. And the thing is people have made it very clear that they don't want these high-rise rental units. And I've always said for years, when I was very young, I wanted to build a garage apartment to start. And the town of Scarborough ordinances says you can't. And there's something that that we can do. And we can change the ordinances. And then what that does is, even if you have it in North Scarborough, and it puts it in the residents' hands then too. And the residents can benefit from this. Everybody in town can benefit if they want to build a garage apartment. And if it's a new lot, allow a young person could afford the lot and to build a garage apartment and live in it. And then as they have a family, they want to build a house, they can build a house. And then eventually they'll move into the house, and then they have an apartment that they could rent. Good for them. Benefit to the residents of this town doing it that way, instead of the way we're doing it now. And I've said that for years. I built a garage apartment in 2005. And I had to jump through so many hoops to do it. It was ridiculous. It was, I mean, just a resident in town and the setbacks and, all this. My house is really close to the road and the apartment had to be back further. And, it was just, I tried to do another one, they denied it. And, so I think it's a good thing. I think we need to funnel development into young people. You need tiny houses, if you could say, small footage houses, maybe 3 bedrooms, but small rooms, and encourage that. If we want to encourage something, let's make it easy for people to do those kind of builds. And I think that's the road that we need to go. And I mean, I think that's the answer. Maybe the people here may disagree. And if people do disagree with that and don't want that either, then that's fine. But everybody wants a home. We have young kids. I mean, I want mine out. So, allow them to do it. But thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Bill?
I think we all agree that Scarborough has grown. I think we all agree that Scarborough has grown too fast in the last several decades. And we need, as your town council, to do what we can to legally control it, to get it back under control. This particular proposal that was before us that caused the TIF to be proposed was a affordable senior housing project. Who the hell doesn't support good housing for seniors? So, I mean, this was a good proposal and I was all for it. But I can appreciate your interest in seeing its growth. Doesn't involve any children in the schools, so it's gonna have virtually no tax impact, probably have a positive tax impact. But those facts are getting lost in Scarborough's unmanaged growth. And that's what's brought all of you out. And I respect that. The South Portland people who brought this project to us have withdrawn it. That's what had the TIF in front of us to begin with. So there's no reason for us to do it. I'm going to vote no, because there is no reason. Is TIF a usable tool? Yes, in the right circumstances. That parcel of land will be developed. South Portland's already sold it or is selling it. So we as a body need to do what we can to manage growth, as several of you said, so that the quality of life in Scarborough can remain. Because we've got beaches, parks, a lovely town, but we need to be able to preserve it. And I'm glad you all came out. I appreciated hearing it. I was for it, not because of the TIF, but because it was affordable senior housing, so that about 100 people who weren't going to have any impact on the tax rate at all, they'd be invisible in the community for all intents and purposes. They could have had decent housing. And that was, and there isn't a person in the room who wouldn't agree that that's something that we would like to be able to support. But in these circumstances, no, we don't need this TIF district. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I'll go ahead and weigh in. I won't reiterate what some of my fellow counselors have said, other than to just also take the suspense out of it. I intend to vote no. But I will say, what I hope that the community can appreciate is that you have 7 representatives sitting up here who all care very deeply about the residents. We may not agree on the tools. We may not agree on the mechanisms. We may not agree on the timing. But you have a council that really deeply cares about this community, and I'm really grateful and proud to be a part of it. And so I hope that part of your public engagement and your public participation is a greater appreciation for the 7 people that sit here, because we truly do listen, and all of us are doing the very best we can. I think something that stuck out, and I think it was Bill that said, sometimes the issues are getting buried by this growth monster. And so sometimes the really good work that we set out to do is being, it takes a long time. The wheels of government turn slow is not just something we say for fun. And so Karen alluded to the fact that the Eight Corners project was something that came before her when she was on the planning board. She's been on the council 3 years. And so for us now as a council to have to manage and kind of navigate difficult conversations with residents who are really unhappy about what happened at Eight Corners, I'm happy to facilitate those conversations. But at the same time, I certainly didn't control the zoning at the time when it was before planning board. All we can do is learn from and take feedback on what the town has in front of us now. And so I think everyone should feel really optimistic that this council understands and appreciates that we need to start using the tools that are available to us more aggressively than previous councils maybe have in the past, because projects that are coming forward now, that are getting approval now by right, are not under our purview. And so if we really want to impact the future, then we need to take a look at the tools that we have available to us. And I think that that's really going to be the central focus of the workshops that we have in October and November, and really kind of looking, forward looking, but also in a way that previous councils may have tried to do. But I think this council really has an appreciation for the urgency that's existing right now. And so if there's no other council comment, I will call the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion fails. And with that, I will go ahead and take a 7-minute break, and we will reconvene at 8:20. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Until the next thing.
All right, guys, welcome back. Moving on through our agenda this evening, we are now on to new business. Order number 25-081 is first reading to repeal Chapter 401, Town of Scarborough Ordinance adopting the 2003 International Building Code, repeal Chapter 401A, Town of Scarborough International Resident Code, repeal Chapter 401B, Town of Scarborough International Mechanical Code, and adopt a new Chapter 401C Building Code Ordinance and amend Chapter 405 Zoning Ordinance and refer to the Planning Board, Section 4G, Certificate of Occupancy, and Section 7B to amend administrative titles and include references to MUBEC. Now, Scott. I read that. I always read the order numbers at home out loud to make sure that I know how to say all the words and that I know everybody's name and et cetera. And I read that and I thought of the look on your face, Scott, and I laughed out loud because that is a lot of jargon. And so we have our planning director here to help walk us through exactly what this order number pertains to.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is going to be the easiest thing you all have done in quite some time. In 2010, it's 2025 now, the state statute required that communities adopt MUBEC, the Maine Uniform Building and Energy Code. And we have since complied, we have put that into place, but we have not repealed the old ordinances. And this is a housekeeping exercise to repeal those old ordinances. And then the new Chapter 401C Building Code Ordinance essentially says, we're doing what the state told us to do, and we're doing it the proper way. The small amendments to the zoning ordinance refer to changing the term building inspectors the way we used to call it, and we actually use the term code enforcement officer. So it's changing that, and then it's referencing the MUBEC codes. So that is all this is. It's a housekeeping. I actually wasn't aware of it until I was on a Zoom call the other day and someone said, why do you guys still have this on the website? And I thought, okay, we'll clean that up. So this is just a cleanup ordinance. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Autumn? Yes, Scott.
Yeah, that's direct and to the point. Now I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you're all set, Autumn. At this point, I will open this up for public comment. If there's anyone wishing to make public comment.
Denise Hamilton, 2 Rod Road, totally off topic, but Madam Chair went to break too quickly. I want to thank the council on behalf of Not So Fast Scarborough and the taxpayers for your unanimous vote, voting down the Dunston TIFF. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? I show that as unanimous. Thank you. Order number 25-082 is first reading and schedule a second reading to approve the expenditure in an amount not to exceed $470,000 from the Land Acquisition Reserve Fund to assist the Scarborough Land Trust in purchasing 60 acres located at 244 Beach Ridge Road, identified by the Scarborough Tax Assessor's map as R012 Lot 004, as recommended by the Parks and Conservation Land Board, and authorize the town manager to execute any and all documents as necessary to protect the town's interests. And here joining us from our Parks and Conservation Land Board, welcome.
Hi, I'm Steve Zamorowski on the board, as well as Doug Williams here. We're here tonight to test 2 quick items. One is to update you on our work around aligning our evaluation mechanism with the open space plan, as well as to talk about 244 Beach Ridge Road. Just to give you an idea, the open space plan, we have a form, as you know, we evaluate, we use it as a kind of a guidance and an outline to evaluate land acquisitions. And we've updated that in alignment with the open space plan. We've approved it as a board, and now we're waiting for some input from the town and the town GIS group. Mike has been great working with us providing the stuff we need on the old form very quickly. There has been a lot of activity, as you've heard, as you've seen, but now we need to take it to the next level. We need to take the new form, talk with Micah or whoever the right people are, and make sure that we have access to the data from the open space plan. There, as you know, in the open space plan, there's overviews, but then there's layers of data. We're assuming that data is public information, but we're not sure. We need to clarify that. And we need to make sure that Micah has access to that information. So a quick example, one of our new assessment items is this land under an aquifer? Well, we don't know that unless we can get access to that information. That's part of the open space plan. So if somebody can get our request with Micah up kind of maybe higher on his pile of things to do, that would be great.
I know someone that can. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Okay, so the next item is we, the board, met on July 10th, and we voted to recommend the town council authorize $470,000 to spend from the already approved land bond to assist the Scarborough Land Trust with the purchase of 60 acres located at 244 Beach Ridge Road. We'll call Beach Ridge Preserve for now. The conservation value of this property includes the protection of the Nonsuch River and significant wildlife habitat. It will also provide public recreational access. The purchase will permanently protect 3,100 feet of frontage on the Nonsuch River and adjacent forests, wetlands, grasslands, and riparian habitat. The town's comprehensive plan states the Nonsuch River is the largest source of fresh water to Scarborough Marsh and has previously been identified by the town as the conservation priority. As SLT describes in their application, Nature's Network, a 13-state collaborative, also identifies the Nonsuch River as part of an aquatic core network that supports a broad diversity of aquatic species in the ecosystem on which they depend. Nature's Network identifies approximately 25 acres in the parcel as core habitat for imperiled species. The list of identified and likely species supported by this parcel is in your packet. Scarborough Land Trust will provide public access and will build and maintain trails for recreation, including hiking, snowshoeing, wildlife observation, hunting, and fishing. The total project cost is $991,524, so the town's contribution is about 47% of the project. Notably, the Land Trust was awarded $380,000 towards the purchase of the property and $30,000 to support the stewardship of the property from Maine Land of Maine's Future, LMF. In addition, $16,700 was awarded from the Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund. A community effort led by the trust will fundraise the remaining $95,000. In summary, the conservation of this parcel would contribute to our town's 30 by 30 goal within a high-value areas identified in the open space plan and will help us achieve one of our other goals outlined in the comprehensive plan, which is to have access, for our residents to have access to open spaces within 1/2 mile of their home. For these reasons, we encourage the town to join Scarborough Land Trust and the other noted organizations in the preservation of this very valuable parcel. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Does anyone have any questions for Steve?
And Scott and Andrew are here as well. You have any questions?
You guys. I don't see any questions.
Great.
We're a quiet group this evening. Thank you very much for being here. At this time, I will take public comment on this item. If there's anyone wishing to make public comment? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Council discussion.
supported.
Thanks, Bill. Karen.
I just want to thank the Parks and Conservation Land Board, especially Steve. Steve is our newest member, so thanks for stepping up here and doing the presentation. Great job. That board's been working really hard. I really appreciate the volunteers on there. We've kept them really busy with our $6 million land bond, and they're going to continue to be busy. So let's see how quickly we can go through that 6 million, right? And get our 30 by 30 goal. One of the things that the council does need to decide, and I think I emailed our chair
knew you were
about
gonna-
this,
yep.
was that we need to determine a procedure to add more sand when we acquire more land towards our 30 by 30 goal. And so I don't know if anyone has any ideas, but that is something that we do need to implement and figure out because we are now behind and we need to add even more sand even for this.
I call the next one.
There you go.
There.
See, I like it. There you go. So obviously I'm in support of this. Thank you to, the Parks and Conservation and to the Scarborough Land Trust for continuing to be our partner with this goal.
Great, thank you. Any other council comment? Yeah, Corey.
The peripheral vision again.
I was cheating. I looked at the screen.
No, I definitely support this. I think it's great. I'm sure you mentioned earlier that sometimes some of these other conversations that we have end up sort of drowning out some of the great work that is happening in town. And I also want to echo Councilor Shoup in thanking the Parks and Conservation Land Board and others involved with this, and Councilor Shoup herself for being a leader on this. And and there are references to the open space plan, and I wonder sometimes, particularly during times like this when we're hearing from a lot of residents about certain issues, how much awareness there is about the fact that we have an open space plan, because we hear a lot of things like sort of unfettered growth and the towns all being paved over. We have this 30 by 30 goal that's had great progress made toward it. We have an open space plan. We've conserved a lot of acreage in town. We have great folks in town who are doing great work to protect not only recreation opportunities and habitat, but also watersheds. And there's understandably a lot of focus on the streams and the marsh and everything else. And so I think it is great work, and I think it's an example of some of the good things that are happening in town. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think this is great and I support it. And I really appreciate hearing more about how the board has updated their criteria to make sure it includes the open space plan. I think that's great. My only thing is, as we do this too, we also have our Parks and Facilities Master Plan that also identifies maybe some land needs too. And so while I know we have this bond specifically to support conservation, I hope we also get a little bit more aggressive on how we can also use this for recreation. Just hearing some of the commenters tonight, again, this notion of getting together, which again can totally happen at Land Trust properties, which is a great place to go. I think they're also looking for other forms of passive or active recreation too to gather. And so I hope that we continue to press as quick as we can to kind of make good choices about what we can purchase to help with both conservation and recreation.
Great. Any other council comment? Yep, Larry and then Scott.
Thanks, John, for bringing that up. I agree 100% with that. I'm all for this plan, and I really appreciate the original voter response on that land bond. It was overwhelming. But I agree with John that I think there's some room to look at how purchasing and setting aside land can also help the community in different ways. And I'd like to have some thought around that. Some of the gathering places and community services facilities and things that are envisioned could start with a land purchase with the right opportunity. It doesn't mean you have to build it out or anything, but it is just another approved use of those funds. So I'd also like to be mindful of that.
Great.
Yeah, this is, hey, an easy vote. Gonna like that. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Yeah, it's great. It's a wonderful thing, and we'll have more of it, I guess, because we got a ways to go. So great.
Thank you. I also am just appreciative of the work. We have the best volunteers in the state, as far as I'm concerned. People who give so much of their time, who do so maybe a little less publicly than we do, but nonetheless, it is a tremendous amount of work and a tremendous amount of time. And so thank you for your dedication to this kind of work. With that, I will go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor? Show that as unanimous. Thank you. Item 10 this evening is non-action items. Item 11 is council member comments. Earlier in the meeting, we had agreed that we would carve out a little time to discuss the feedback that the comms committee is looking for on the survey. So if we could start with council comments related to that. And if you don't have any, that's perfectly fine. But if you do, let's start with that. And then any other council comments we can do at the end. Yeah, Karen.
I mean, I will just say that I just said to Larry, I would like a little time to
Sure.
be able to articulate. I think when we were on the ordinance committee meetings, I think we got maybe a little bit more feel about what people were feeling. We got some emails, but then I really want to be cognizant of the fact that I sat in those community services rec advisory board meetings for like 2 years. So I heard a lot of conversations about really kind of what they were thinking about the enjoyment in Scarborough and maybe how you could articulate and ask a question like that. So I would really love feedback maybe from the ordinance committee as well, because I think, we kind of sat through and suffered through a little bit of that about the best way to word a question, and be mindful about everyone's wants and needs and priorities in the town. But ultimately we told them we would be asking a question. And it was in direct response to language that was in the ordinance that was not supposed to be there, but was there, and kind of sparked a conversation. So that's all I have to say. So I'd like a little time to do that.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, John.
And my suggestion on this, as you guys think about it, is maybe not try and write the question itself, because
Yeah.
we have the experts who can do it. It's really, what is the data point you hope to learn from this? And then we can give it to the survey provider to craft the best question to get to that answer. And so I think that's partially what we're struggling with a little bit is, what is the piece of data that you want to get that may inform policy, or whatever you guys committed to the community that you want to make sure we at least get that data. And so I think that's partly where on the comms committee, as we debated it, we kind of were like, well, maybe we want this, or maybe we want that. So if you guys can just be clear on like, what is the answer you would want to be able to get from the survey, then I think the experts can work on crafting the right question. That was, I don't know if it's multiple questions. I think it's really up to the council if they want to add more than one question. I know the survey did say that they had concerns about the volume of questions we had, that we didn't want to cut anything because they're all relevant and important. So I would just be thoughtful about adding too many questions. I would say if we can stick to one and that hits the need of the committee, I think that would be ideal. I don't know, Liam, if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. So, so at this point, the survey is largely complete. It is at a length that I think we're bordering on whether we really have a lot of capacity. To John and Councillor Anderson and Councillor Kane's earlier comments, I think the survey is not really great about being instructive on policy. It certainly can identify sentiment, concerns, whatever the issues are. On this issue, as I was following along, it seemed like there were some questions that were brought up around the applicability of this ordinance in places outside of town beaches. Obviously, it speaks a lot to again, specifically dogs on beaches and restricted areas and times of the year. I know that there's some interest from the committee, I think from some counselors, on what the access to dogs would be to other town parks, courts, things like that. So I think it really trying to narrow what that feedback is. I think the example that Councillor Kane suggested was trying to get, I guess, a good kind of statistically valid sample on experience. Do people actually have a concern with this issue that would then feed some policy discussions? But yeah, I think that we could probably do a whole page trying to dig down on this. We really don't have that. So what would be the most important community feedback that would be statistically valid that would help serve our purposes moving forward for potentially a policy discussion?
Thanks, Liam. That was a good summary of that. I just want to be clear, the question that I quoted was not at all meant to be, the suggested question. I expect you all to go yay or nay. It was to get, my point was to get it to a broader point than one particular subject of either beach use or restrictions, new restrictions on parks and rec and all that. But so I was trying to illustrate that I was looking for a broad answer and an experience answer around what are the negative impacts that people have had with animals and their owners, if any, and or the rate of them, to kind of judge how substantial is the problem. Does that support changing the existing ordinance? It's not like we're trying to create one from scratch. We're talking about how to adjust the existing one. So I thought that by trying to have a broader view on it than one particular thing was a good way to get at the data point, like John's pointing to.
Yeah, Corey.
Yeah, those are all helpful comments. And just speaking as one member of the ordinance committee, you know, I think the way I'm sort of thinking about it is that, you know, as various members of this council have mentioned in the past on a variety of issues, once something goes into the ordinance, it's generally there for a long time. And you know, that system is sort of set up to intentionally make it so that it's not easy to just change things willy-nilly. And so as with, you know, the short-term rental ordinance discussion and some other things that we've discussed, I think, at least, again, only speaking for myself as one member of the ordinance committee and one member of the council, I think the purpose of that question is to, as Councillor Kane said, sort of really try to tease out how much of an issue is there really based on the survey responses. And, you know, we don't want to be a solution in search of a problem. It would be one way to put it. So that's sort of the way I think about it. And I think it's generally good in my mind to try to err on the side of not layering on more regulations unless there's really compelling evidence and really compelling reason for it. Thanks.
Thank you, Corey. So the one thing I would add is just, I know that we're all really close to it. We had a lot of public comment, and so the individuals who were really active on it came and spoke. But this survey is going out to a statistically valid number of residents that are going to cross all kinds of different spectrum. And so just making sure that we frame it in a way that is going to feel relevant to people who were not sitting in chambers the day we had that big ordinance meeting is really important, because otherwise I think you're going to be missing the mark on, you know, making sure that you kind of get that broad, you know, piece of information that you're looking for, which I think is just kind of overall satisfaction with people's experience as it relates to interacting or being at our beaches, or obviously I don't want to wordsmith it, but my 2 cents would just be make sure that the question is framed in a way that is maybe not so specific to the ordinance that if you literally have no idea that this is something the council took up, you can still answer the question. It, you know, it still feels relevant to you. Yeah.
Everyone keeps saying beaches, and for me, this is not about.
Sure.
Okay, and
Yep.
I just, because for me, this is not targeting dogs at beaches. I want to look at Scarborough as a whole, and so I didn't know if the comms was like, we just want to talk about beaches. I'm more like, let's ask a question that applies across the town. It sounds like this, I don't know if we're like more like just beaches or just across the town.
I mean,
No,
just in this conversation, it is making me feel more like what Councillor Kane did kind of propose is close to maybe what would meet the need. It's really about, in general, do you have good experiences with dogs in public places in town? Or something to that.
I would say
nature.
town properties.
Town properties
property.
or something that, so I think you're really
I
close.
think town properties is, I want that 2 words in there.
Town properties.
Town properties. And dogs. No, not dogs, animals.
Animals.
Animals,
Yeah,
not
can't say
dogs.
dogs.
Domesticated animals, not wild animals, so domesticated. Yeah. So we are wordsmithing now.
Yes, and
Yeah.
now we are
Yeah.
definitely into the
So maybe
sausage
that-
making portion of the meeting. Any other feedback? I don't know if this is helpful. I know that sometimes at the committee level, you know, it's great to kind of have this back and forth engagement. If you've never watched a committee meeting, this is very typical, especially for the comms committee. And so, you know, when Larry asked for additional feedback, I said, we can absolutely bring it to council. This is pretty much exactly how I figured it would go. And then I would just ask that if anybody has, you know, specific Karen has now made it very clear, specific language she would like to see. Larry coordinate with staff and send something out for review. And I can maybe kind of going to agree to not try and wordsmith this to death over email. Like, I would like to just maybe compromise and hit the mark, and hopefully we can arrive at something that gets general consensus so that this can be delivered to the publisher on time. Yeah, Scott.
Yeah, my input is, again, as I always say, less government. But I get it if there's an issue or something, but, I think that the committees are great, but they're not the consensus of the town. They're more special interest groups. So I think this is great that we're reaching out past that and letting them know that just because the committee says that we should do this, we don't, because we've learned if we just jump on it and do it, then the people come up roaring. So the people is who you have to listen to. So I think that's great to get some input and see if there is an issue or a problem. I personally, I've never had the issue. I like dogs. So, I don't have an issue with them when they're around, and most people I've been around, if they're in a public place, they either have them on a leash or they listen to the owner and they come and go when they're supposed to. So, thank you.
Thanks, Scott. All set?
Just let me clear, do you want the committee to send out kind of a, give us your feedback thing, or are you all good with just sending that in with the next few days?
I don't understand the distinction between what you just asked.
Do you want us to send a prompt to say here, whether it includes what I wrote or the intent? Also, I will say we have the intention of putting in a clarifying preface to this about what the existing ordinance states. We need to make that concise, but just so people who haven't had a dog in the fight are informed a little bit about what the current ordinance says. So
I would suggest maybe we don't need that at this point if it's really a more broad-based question on general experience with domesticated animals on town-owned properties.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Yeah.
So that way we're drawing less attention. I don't know. Liam's thinking.
Liam has his thinking face.
I think sharing some comments to the chair of the committee, and then perhaps you and I can go offline, then we can workshop and get back out to the council for some feedback. We also, we could have a brief workshop before another committee meeting or a virtual meeting or something if we
Right.
wanted to have some more thoughtful discussion between now and when we have to get it out. But I'd say send everything to the chair of communications or the communications committee, and then we can workshop it.
Okay.
To be clear on the procedure, is the full survey coming to council? Did we do that in the past?
I believe the first survey we did came to council for just discussion and feedback. I think the comms committee handled it the second iteration.
Okay.
And again, similar process to what Councillor Kane is doing now, where give us your feedback and suggestions.
Okay.
But that's the process we followed.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Corey.
Just real quickly, I know that we've been talking about the survey, but I want to make sure we don't lose the fact that lose sight of the fact that one of the other things that we talked about was having staff collect data over the course of the summer season. That was specifically, at least as I recall, more focused on the beaches. So those are other data points that we'll look forward to seeing that will factor into future discussions.
Great, thank you. Any other council comment unrelated to the survey? So I had a weird afternoon. My daughter's car died, literally just died while we were driving on Sawyer Road, right out by the school. And we were just kind of stranded and stuck there, and we weren't able to get the car off the road because the battery had literally died. And so we were just sitting there, and within minutes, if you want to break down in Scarborough, break down right in front of the public safety facility, because within minutes, we had a member of our fire department in his truck sitting behind us, making sure that we didn't get rear-ended and that we could safely make calls. And then we also had a response from our unmarked police car. And then we had a response from our marked patrol officers. And so while I am a little embarrassed, it definitely looked like we were getting arrested at one point. I want to express my gratitude to our public safety team who made sure that my daughter and I were very safe and well protected this afternoon in a very uncomfortable place to be stuck in the middle of the road. And also to the several dozen residents that slowed down and stopped and rolled down their window and asked if I had a phone and made sure that we were all set and that, that we were safe and taken care of. So while it was not my favorite thing that's ever happened, I am grateful to those that were willing to stop and help us today. So thank you. With that, Scott, yeah. Go
One
for it,
more-
sir.
One more thing. I was shocked to hear you say that, had no idea that you're not running. You're really good at what you do. You said, and before, that you love doing it. I'm shocked that you're not going to run. I think you should. I may disagree with you at times, but you're very fair and you always listen. And I appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott.
Second that.
Thank you, guys. We'll have.
She was gonna turn in her papers, but her car broke down.
John sent me many texts today, in all forms of giving me a hard time, to telling me we weren't friends anymore, to telling me that he was going to go take out papers in my name for me.
To you
and
having my own conversation with you.
he had a whole conversation with himself at one point during the day. But I appreciate the sentiment, Scott. Thank you. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Don't move.
Second.
All those in favor? Thanks, everybody, and good evening.